Hello there.
So we're running into some more issues.
What?
We're running into some more issues.
Running into
Some more problems.
some more problems. Okay. What kind of problems?
So basically the soldering connections aren't holding up.
They're what?
Are not holding up
Oh.
under the pressure. So there's not enough wire left to complete to put a loop around a screw. And the bottom ones I finished, and I gave the thing a bump when I was doing the top ones, and 2 of the soldering connections snapped.
Fun. I'll be right back.
Anybody there yet?
Yeah, there's a few people here. Greetings from Chile. Hello from Ohio. Hello, I'll be right back. My assistant is working on an antenna out in the backyard, and we have issues. Hello, everybody. Quite a few people. We're doing some antenna repair in real time here. Well, I've got These are really tiny.
Okay.
And they are loops, so you can put screws through them. I would bring the wire in and around the loop and back out.
Okay.
And then crimp the living daylights out of it. Let me get a crimping tool.
I have the good ones over in my room.
Okay. Let's see what you've got there. Wire connections. Wires are breaking. Yes.
No.
Yes, you can use this. Probably the little one right there.
Okay.
And don't be bashful using your strength on that crimp.
Okay. And what extra wire would
Oh.
I use?
I'll give you some more. Let's see. On these, what you want to crimp is not the flat side. You want that little point to go into where the two halves come together. Otherwise, you crimp it on that side, the two halves will just come apart. So. Okay, wire, you need wire. Wire is here. Well, okay, not that one. Didn't take as much as you need from there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do you want me to close this door?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
We're working here in real time. So many people have asked about the live stream that I thought I would come back to you with a little bit of a live stream. I don't know how long we will last tonight. Get that right there. Okay. First of all, hello everybody. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, coming to you from just north of Ridgeway, Colorado, and this is my field day shirt. So, got that prior to field day, and it's a pretty high quality shirt, so I keep wearing it as long as I don't dribble too much on myself. A little news about myself. I am on Ozempic because I'm diabetic, and I've lost over 50 pounds. I've got about that much again to lose. Still over 200. So my baseline weight was 266. I'm down to 211, 212 right now. Okay, let's see what we've got. It looks like we've got an excellent connection. I'm coming to you via Starlink. Elon Musk's system. I don't know if I dare say that word today. Oh boy, the last couple months have been very interesting indeed. From no matter what your political perspective is, it's been interesting. So we'll just leave it at that. Let's see, W1SBW, my amateur radio journey. Hello, Dave. How are you? Good to see you. Alberto Cornejo. Hello, greetings from Chile. I have one of my recent couple assistants back was Callum Jakeman, and he went on his Mormon mission to Chile. Just passing through, hello from Ohio, KE8QPI, and TJK1968 Slice says hello. Mr. G, hello from KD9FCZ. Hello, KQ4WQM, hi Dave. Michael Lowe, hi Dave, been a while since I've been here. KQ4WQM, hi from South Carolina. Oh, you guys have been having lots of fun there, haven't you? All that rain, I guess it kind of wiped out parts of North Carolina and into adjacent states with all that flooding. And then the wildfires. You know, I grew up in Southern California, and wildfires were a thing every October. We'd have some rain, the sagebrush, and what do they call it? Chaparral. The ground covering is called chaparral. It's a group of plants. They grow up to the height of a tall bush. And in their life cycle, every 5 years, they're supposed to burn. And so burnings down there are perfectly normal. However, houses get in the way. And of course, you heard about the big fire. The big fire on Pacific Palisades, yeah, that was very sad. But those are people with good insurance and all that kind of thing. They'll do fine. It's the people in the, what was it, Altadena fire over just north of Pasadena. They're not going to do fine. It was a lower middle class neighborhood, and people who had lived there for very, very, very long periods of time. And who'd have thunk it there'd be a big fire like that? Nobody in their right mind would have predicted there would have been a fire that would cause that sort of a problem. The Santa Ana wind down there, I grew up with the Santa Anas. The one thing I loved about the Santa Anas is they blew all the smog out to sea. But it also was fire season. Now fire season is any time of the year. My son and daughter still use their mother's house, sort of like a huge brick wall between the two of them, but, you know, whatever. Not my problem. But the fire, fire that was up there in the Boulder area got within a quarter mile of where they live. And my daughter was naming names of people I knew whose houses were burnt. I'm going, they're in Louisville. We're 20 miles from the mountains. Good grief. I guess there's no safe place these days. Okay, a nice chair. Yes, I like it. It's a gaming chair. One thing I had to do on it, you know, where the bottom you got the legs, then there's this post in there. I'd sit it to max height, which is just about right, and then it would slowly sink down. So I went on Amazon and found a solution for that. Apparently this is not an uncommon problem, but it's a clamp that you tighten up, that you put right at the base of that pole so it can't go down any further. Now, however, if I do hit the trigger to go down, it'll push that down, but just with the normal force holding it up, it holds it up and solves the problem. Let's see, nice chair. Yes, it's a gaming chair. And one of the problems with losing so much weight is I'm losing padding in my butt. So I'm going to have to start sitting on a pad, I guess. Pedro Morias, K6MIL, good to see you, Dave. Good to see you, too. Robert Seidel, hello, Augies. John Brace, we've missed you, Dave. Thursdays are not the same without this little gathering. From Fubar, yeah. First time I asked my dad about that, he said, fouled up beyond all recognition. Well, we all know this is a World War II term, and it did not mean fouled, although that conveys the meaning. Hi from Sydney down under. How did you get those upside down letters? That is fascinating. John J., brand new ham from Oklahoma. Welcome into the hobby. Trying to figure out grounding a second-story shack. How much of a problem is a 15 to 20-foot wire to reach the soil downstairs? How can I tell if the ground wire is resonant? Being on the second floor makes it different. Now, I've been mostly carefully reading the newest book from the League on Grounding, which is the second edition of Grounding and Bonding for Radio Amateurs. Been out for a while now, and I'm learning some new things. I thought I knew everything that was in that book, but no. If you're on the second floor, you need a path for static electricity to go to the ground. And it doesn't matter how long that ground rod is. Just put a wire out your window and down to a ground rod next to you, underneath where the station is. I would recommend running all antenna wires down to the ground rod to a lightning arrestor, mounted at the ground rod, and then up into your window. Now that's not going to be perfect. What you also want to, and this is what I learned from the book, to your grounding bar inside your station, where you ground your power supply and your radio and your antenna tuner and your watt meter and whatever. Make sure that's also connected to the green wire ground, because this is the way it was explained to me by a grounding expert. He's a ham, but he spends his life dealing with grounding according to the National Electric Code. And the reason for that is safety. In the event of a lightning strike, your station ground and your household ground can part ways voltage-wise quite a bit. So that's why you want to bring that loop over to that. I haven't done that yet. I will. I thought, shoot, this can introduce ground loops. If it does, take it out. Now, as Kirsten, she's the ARRL, first VP. She's one very smart lady. PhD, of course, and she works for Apple doing RFI kinds of things, antenna kinds of things. And let's see, let's find the listing of league officials. So I can give you her name. Oh, come on. It's got to be in here somewhere. Okay, first fiber, Kristen McIntyre, K6WX. She lives out in San Jose. I've met her. I've had dinner with her and several others. She's a fascinating person. She's seen my presentations. I've seen her presentation. She gave a presentation at Dayton last year on grounding. And her response was, it may not be needed for your radio. If you are in a place where your only contact with ground is the green wire ground and the wall outlet, use it. Okay, that gives you a bit of a path. Now, I really recommend if you're on the second floor, in Britain, that would be called the first floor, because the first floor is the ground floor, then the first floor, and so on. But if you're in the second physical story, I've got a friend, Lou. He's very active in the Montrose Amateur Radio Club. He also teaches tech and general classes. He does what I said. You take the coax all the way down to the ground to a lightning arrestor on a ground rod, and then all the way back up into your station. That's for safety. Okay, the primary purpose is for safety. The next purpose would be it will help with RFI. Now, what Kristen did in her station was lots of ferrite beads to eliminate the RFI, and you may have to do that too. And then operationally, some antennas like to be grounded. Okay, some don't care. A balanced antenna like a dipole doesn't care. Now, the common way, I would say just by sheer number of people doing it, the common way to feed a dipole antenna is take your coax out there, put the center conductor to one side and the shielded braid to the other. That is very common. A lot of people who sell dipoles online use exactly that method. The antenna that we're repairing out back is my MFJ Cobweb, and I've only had it 5 years, and the thing has just fallen to pieces. So I've got my assistant out there doing a lot of work to get that thing back up. And I mean, we live at 7,000 feet, and the ultraviolet light here is fierce. So it's very easy to get a sunburn here. 15 minutes outside, and you can get a good sunburn here. That's because about, what, a third, a quarter of the atmosphere is below us. So the rest of it that takes out the UV rays is above us. So anyway, for grounding, that's what I would do with that. Now, if you're in like the 21st floor of a condo and you're sticking one of these MFJ balcony antennas out, and you've got the counterpoise strung out in your room, the green wire ground is the best ground you're going to get. So that's the bottom plug. Do I have a 3-wire here? No, I don't. But you know what I mean. It's the grounding lug. So now a lot of I'm going to say some power supplies, they'll connect green wire ground to the black outlet that goes to the rig. That does exactly what I was talking about. Not all power supplies do that. So if you run into ground loops doing that, you'll need to take it out. Okay. So let's see. I love the look of your chair. Tell us about it. It is a gaming chair I got from Office Depot. It's comfortable. It's just the right size. Fits me very well. I'm going to have to start putting a pad on the bottom of it, because with the 50 pounds I've lost on the Ozempic because I'm diabetic, and yes, technically I am taking it for my diabetes. The fact that I've lost 50 pounds so far is pure extra, pure benefit. Okay, and I've got a lot more weight to lose. I'm still over 200 pounds, but not nearly as much as I was. Boy, the guy I sold my airplane to was a big boy too. And when I took him up for his demo flight, it took a lot of the runway to get us into the air. But he said he loved the airplane. He bought it and flew it off to home. It's a very interesting story about this. He needed to, I said, I want a $3,000 deposit. Now, I'll refund it if you don't want the airplane. And he transferred it directly into my bank account. Well, he then paid the first half of what was remaining directly in my bank account, and then paid the rest directly in my bank account. So it's a guaranteed deposit. And I had been completely paid when I gave him that demo ride. And I had all the paperwork filled out. I even had a copy and a self-addressed stamped envelope to the FAA Registration Bureau. It was just painless. Now he's going to get charged sales tax on that. Okay, let's see. That's the chair. Robert Pettit. Howdy, Rob. AC6SC. KQ4WQM. Hey, Dave, you going to be in Denver for the Yoda camp? I'll be there. Got accepted to the camp. That sounds like a lot of fun. Do tell me when that is. My plan had been to go to Dayton this year, but my wife is having serious issues with her back. And we just went to Blanding in Utah, which is a 3.5-hour drive. And it was too much for her. She had heating pads behind her that we plugged into one of these giant battery packs that we keep getting from the various Chinese manufacturers. I don't know what the tariffs are going to do to those, but the price is going to go up. And so anyway, that kept her pretty good for much of the trip. She wasn't up to driving any. So going to Dayton, she doesn't want to go. So I need to find somebody to drive with me. I've got the regular bed in the RV, and then there's the bed that's up over the cab that's actually more than, it's close to 7 feet long. So somebody throw a sleeping bag up there, they could ride up there. I think I fixed the heater a couple days ago. This was the sail switch. I had bought a new sail switch for it, and turned out it was bad. So I had bought two, so I put the other one in there, and it seems to be working fine now. What do you think about flat pack duplexers? Flat pack duplexers. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you describe it a little bit more? Oh, I wanted to ask, how can you tell if the ground wire is resonant? You can just actually put a antenna analyzer or your nano VNA on the thing. You know, half to ground, half to something that can act as a counterpoise, and then to your wire, and it will tell you where it will resonate. So, okay, flat pack duplexers. Can I look that up just a minute? Flat pack duplexers. Most mobile duplexers are reject only and are sometimes called flat packs, notch only, or notch plexers. Some are for transmit and for receive. Okay, well, I guess what we're looking at there is those flat pack duplexers. They work. Most hams, including me, mix up the terminology between a duplexer and a diplexer, and they are technically different things. And I can look it up and I tell you all about it, and then I'll promptly forget. So there we go. Okay. Oops. I mean, the ones that you see sold by amateur radio companies do work. The ones that I've seen that are the most common are separating 220 and not 220, I'm sorry, 144, 2 meters from 70 centimeters. Now there's a band in between. That's the 222 megahertz band. There's 3 megahertz worth of frequency there. We used to have 5, and everybody was so upset when the FAA took 2 away from us that a lot of people thought the band had been just canceled. It has not. It is a live band. In more crowded cities, you will see repeaters on that. And some radios like this one here, which is the Anytone DE578, will output well, it's 1.25 meters, 220 megahertz. Okay, 3 Henry 21 Conrad KN6VMK in the Sacramento River Delta. You guys are getting some rain this year. And snow. Of course, the president, in an attempt to get more water to Southern California, caused 2 dams to make a release of water. Of course, that water came nowhere near Southern California. It went north. So, I don't know. It was right during the transition phase, and there was nobody to say, don't you dare. That water is precious. Okay, Sacramento River Delta is one of the most agriculturally productive areas in the United States. Oddly enough, one of the major crops in that area is rice, and they do flood their fields there. There's rice grown in some of the southern states that the Japanese consider to be premium rice. The problem is that the Japanese have, for a very, very long time, put a very high tariff on imported rice. And the reason for that is to protect the indigenous Japanese rice growers who were politically very influential. In the old Meiji era, I think samurai, there were 4 classes of people. There were the top samurai, okay, defense. Second top, farmer. They feed you. Third, workers of other various kinds. And fourth, and the bottom, merchants. In that Japanese way of thinking, the merchants, their value is simply shifting from one place to another and collecting a fee. So they were not thought of as, high level. It was the samurai, the farmer next. Well, a lot of that history, that legacy still is ingrained in Japanese culture. And the rice farmer is protected. And they grow rice in Japan, lots of it, but not enough. So it's very common for Japanese tourists to go home with a great big bag of American rice because they can get that into the country duty-free because it's just one person bringing a little something in. And they like that U.S. rice a lot better. Now, I spent 2 years on my Mormon mission in the Philippines and learned to love rice. The rice they have over there clumps into a ball, which is the way I think rice should be. But try and find a decent rice cooker that will do that. It's the way you cook it, and also the type of rice. It's hard to get that original rice. In Denver on the 1,000 block, addresses from 1,000 to 1,100 going south on Federal is the Asian shopping district. This is where people of Asian descent shop. You can get the rice there, and you can get a proper rice cooker there too. But that's about the only place you can get. Okay, good evening from North Carolina, KU4XV. So Daryl, tell me, are you underwater or on fire? I mean, that's all we hear from that area. Rob Q, hello Dave from Venice Beach, California. Nice place, I've been there. Ian Grayson, hello from ZL1DM in New Zealand. Hello and welcome. It's midday for you, midday tomorrow. Doug Dry, hello Doug. Howdy everyone from Doug KD4NC in Kennesaw, Georgia. Thunderstorms here tonight. Yeah, there have been some tornadoes back there that just looked horrible. I've seen some of them on TV. There was a recent picture released by NASA from I think it's the Curiosity moon rover, that shows dust devils, several dust devils. And there was a picture apparently of the two of them merging. Boy, if you've got an airplane, you don't want to fly through one of those. It is a tornado without the water. So, okay. Fred Posson, newcomer to our live stream. N8 FAQ, hello Dave from northern Michigan. Still cool up there, I'll bet. Here's Mac User, just with one little image of a smiling ape, I think. Natalie Batiste, hello from Davenport. It's sprinkling and 56 degrees. Tanuki 505, thank you for the videos. They help me tremendously to understand the material and pass my general and extra yesterday. Congratulations and welcome to HF. And if you go to dcasler.com/reference, you'll find the reference station laid out, and it's a reference design. Now what that means is it's something to refer to make sure you're considering everything you need to consider. So it's got power supply, it's got antenna, it's got coax, and all these kinds of things in there. And the recommended reference radio is the ICOM 7300. Now that's been out for about 10 years now, and I've been toying with the idea. Maybe we need to update that, but I gotta tell you what, this is one classy little rig, and it really, really does well. So if you want, substitute an FT991, FT710, or FTDX10, and put that in there in place of it, and it'll work. The power supply will be correct for it, and so on. So the radios are interchangeable. Now I will mention one thing. When I demonstrate something on HF, I do it on the 7300. So if you have that, you'll be getting the same thing. One of the big videos, I made the video, and in reviewing it, thought it was horrible. So it's about the CW features of the 7300. I may have to break it into several videos, but I had a question from somebody. It says, I've got a 7310, I'm kind of doing CW on it, but I don't really know what it has to offer. Well, it has a great deal to offer. And so I'm going to go through that in this future video. I haven't made it yet, but will. It'll probably have to be split among several videos, literally because there are so many CW features. Matlub Khan from India, welcome. David Van Densen, who will take the place of MFJ for more affordable equipment? Very good question. MFJ was one of a kind. I know Martin Jew. I know Richard, the guy who actually runs the place. And Martin was willing to sell it if he could sell it all in one piece, and it would stay in Starkville with their current employees. Well, nobody is going to be willing to do that. Nobody. Richard Stubbs is the guy. He's the head tech guy. And I've talked with him a number of times and met them both at Dayton. So what Martin said, well, he'll just do an orderly wind-up of the business, and that'll be that. I am really sorry to see that, because I have said in previous videos, if MFJ did not exist, somebody would have to invent it. Now, with MFJ, you also got Cushcraft, High Gain, and others that MFJ had bought and moved to Starkville. Okay, now I have heard rumors. Rumor category, rumor, that DX Engineering tried to buy MFJ, but they wanted to move it to Talmadge, Ohio, where they have their headquarters, and Martin wasn't willing. So what is going to happen over the next 10 years is the most popular of the MFJ devices you'll start seeing coming out. Now, DX Engineering is not just a retailer. They also do some manufacturing there. For example, Butternut. They bought Butternut. They greatly, I might add, improved the manual for the HF9V. Greatly. And I know that because I refactored. Okay, that's the coding word. I remanufactured the HF9V. And it was a heck of a thing to tune, but with the new directions, they're fine. So DX Engineering now, Butternut is DX Engineering. So DX Engineering is going wherever it will go. Now, I've said on a number of occasions, if I were the turnaround specialist brought in for MFJ, because they were kind of getting a little tight toward the end there, I'd go through their catalog and throw 9/10 of it away. How many manual antenna tuners do we need? 50? No. How about 2 or 3? You know, and 2 or 3 in the 100-watt range, and then a couple in the 500, 1,000, 1,500-watt range. Okay, fine. You've covered the antenna tuners. Automatic, same type of a deal. Okay. I had the 993B for a long time. Automatic antenna tuner, still works fine. I did it, used it for a video. Used this little long wire here, strung it up to one of the poles we had here, made my MFJ 993B a remote antenna tuner by sitting it outside and feeding it with a battery. Okay. And then this went directly from the wire terminal on the back of it up to the pole. So we had a sloper wire with 0 transmission line, and I had problems with it at first, but what I discovered, dumb, stupid thing, is I had not turned off the antenna tuner and the radio, so the two tuners were fighting each other. When I turned off the tuner and the radio, that thing, bam, it would just jump to the right tuning set, and I could tune any length of wire I had, basically from 40 on up. Okay, you want to get it a little longer for 80. But the thing about these right here is, one, you don't want to run it from the back of your antenna tuner in the shack because you're bringing RFI into the shack. So you want a remote antenna tuner. LDG has been simplifying their line of tuners, and they have one remote tuner which will do the job very nicely, thank you. So you could use that. That's what I've been telling people to get. But it is an issue that MFJ, it's quite an issue for the ARRL because MFJ purchased 11 pages of ads in QST every month. So that was a chunk of revenue they don't have anymore. Okay, let's see, from Indiana. Tim Phillips, good evening from Tim, K4TEP, my dad, and for EMP, recently bought the new Yaesu FT710, and he and I love it. And Yaesu makes great radios. I've always been a Yaesu person. I went with the ICOM for the station. My rig at the time was a Yaesu FTDX 3000, which is not a beginner radio. It's a intermediate. Oh man, what a nice radio. But I figured if I put the ICOM in the reference station, I should run it myself. So I did. What's the best way to boost a repeater signal to retransmit in your metal building to use your handy-talkie instead of a base station radio? There isn't any real good way. And the problem with you intercept so little of it, and you try and put an antenna in the shed, and it's going to have so little power coming through, it won't do you any good. What I would suggest if you want to use the handheld is get one with a BNC connector. Well, you can do this now easily with SMC connectors too, the SMA connectors, the microwave connectors. Get a little link with the connector here and the SO239 here, and just use that if you want to, because some of the reasons you might want to do that is you've got more memories loaded in the handheld or something like that. Now, if you have them from the same manufacturer, it might be possible to transfer from one to the other. Now, I will point out a piece of programming software. RT Systems charges for their software, and I'll think of it after a while. I have it. I use it. There's an open source software, and it is possible with that software to pull down the data from one radio, get it properly reformatted, and put it up to another radio. So that can be done, and I'm pretty sure RT Systems can do the same thing. Help me out with the name of that other piece of software. Let's see. Evening Dave from Connecticut, RG Rautio. And John J, thanks Dave. I have the new grounding book too. Yeah, it's a revelation. And I think the key point is we don't ground because it's best practices. We ground for safety first. And so we want our station equipment and our computer and so on to be at the same reference potential if there is an event outside. Now, a direct lightning strike and all bets are off, okay? And I have suffered a direct lightning strike. Not me, but my station. Evaporated the antenna, literally. But I'm going to go ahead and make that final connection. I think I'm pretty much in compliance with what we need to do there. Okay, Bill Myers, good evening, Dave and Augies. And Bill also sends a $5 input to the channel funds, which is very important. I've got this assistant I got to pay for. So thank you so very much for doing that. He says, thank you for all the advice and help. Happy to. That's why I'm here. Okay, I'm not here to prove I'm smarter than anybody, because as soon as I try to do that, you'll know the opposite is true. I'm not smarter than everybody. Everybody is an expert on something. Okay? And ham radio is such a broad hobby. I can't be an expert on it all. Now, I could look it up, you know, and try and find something going on there. Okay. The Youth on the Air Camp is from June 15th to 20th. It's coming up. Okay, Bill Myers, KAHGIM. Hi, Dave. Any advice for first 160-meter antenna? I have room for a dipole, but would appreciate your advice. Any 160-meter dipole, you need to get it a half wavelength in the air. That's 80 meters or 240 feet. So if you have a 240-foot pole, or two of them, go ahead and string the dipole. Well, if you have it any lower, it's a compromise antenna. And just about anything you're going to do on 160 is a compromise antenna. Get it up a few feet in the air, you will at least get NVIS, okay, in the evening and through the night. And you can get some DX on that thing. It has to do a lot of hops because it's not going out this way. The way to get it to go out this way instead of up that way is to make it a vertical. And there are stories in QST about making 160-meter verticals. If you have a tall tree, hang a long wire from, you know, properly so you don't ruin the tree, down to the ground, okay? At the ground, you're going to put a loading coil on it to load it for 160. And then put the antenna tuner right there. So get one of these LDG remote antenna tuners and put it right there. Okay, and that'll tune that thing up faster than you can say boo, but you really do want that loading coil. So loading coil means compromise antenna. Okay, and no matter what kind of antenna you put up, it's not going to cover all of 160 meters because the band is too wide for a high Q vertical, high quality factor vertical to cover the entire band. So you may have to, you know, if you want to work the top of the band, go out and pick this coil, or this wire on the coil, and when you go down to the bottom of the band, you pick another one. Okay, so you can do that in a variety of ways. Yes, it is possible to get on 160. Now, I say that having heard that from other people because I myself have never been on 160. Now, another way you can do it is a full wavelength loop. It'll have to be horizontal because there's no way you're getting that vertical. A horizontal loop, and it's a full 160 meters around. So that's 40 meters on the side of 66 feet. Okay, So you make it that, and then up at one corner of it, put a ballon, 4-to-1 or 9-to-1, or feed it with ladder line. The problem with ladder line is you get RF in the shack. And then you'll need a very wide range tuner. So I would say the best option for the tuner would be that LDG. Now, one thing the LDG does not have that the MFJs did is a 4-to-1 ballon in them for feeding long wires and stuff like that. So you'll have to add that. You can make it yourself or buy the LDG one or get it from Ballon Designs. If you want a sturdy ballon, go to Ballon Designs. My 4-to-1 ballon, which I used for the loop, I had an 80 meter full wavelength loop. So that's 20 meters on a side. It was pretty big anyway. It worked quite well. Okay, I'd like to hear about the AC1TS. Also would like to hear about the 160 meter. What I would do if you have something that will go that tall is go vertical with it loaded on the bottom and a tuner right at the base. And that way there's no transmission line to have trouble with high SWR. The problem with wide range tuners is you can tune something with a very high SWR, yes, but you're doing a lot of heating of the transmission line. But if there is no transmission line, because the tuner is connected directly to the antenna, you make all that go away. Okay, that's the point of those antennas. Setting up my shack with a diamond vertical antenna shack and antenna ground with ground wad, 8 feet from utility ground, antenna mast mounted on a 4x4 shack. How would I ground? Well, the 4x4, 8 feet from utility ground, antenna mast mounted, and a 4x4. If it's metal, ground it. Put a ground rod right outside your station. Ground your station to it. All the stuff there. Ground the mast on there. And then put in the 8-foot bonding wire. And you'll be probably fine. Now note, don't forget the lightning arrestor at the ground. There's 3 main brands of lightning arresters. I wouldn't go with any of the cheap ones. Little cylinders with the little screw on the side. Don't touch them. You want Alpha Delta, Morgan, or Polyphaser. Okay? My lightning arresters right now are Morgan because my single point grounding panel is a enclosure built by the same guy who owns Morgan. K7F something Metalworks, and it's WERX. Okay. Leo, hi Dave and all Augies, checking in from Albany, Oregon. Crosley Fiver, Dave, try Botan rice. I'm going to write that down right now so I don't forget it. Botan. Rice. I'm getting to the point. I have a little problem called essential tremor. I see nothing essential about it. The word essential, what they mean is they don't know the cause. Okay. But my hands shake, and I can do fairly well in the morning, but by evening, typing is hopeless. And writing something, I have a real problem. I cannot read my own writing. Here are some notes that I made at, these are from Quartz Fest. And I asked people at Quartz Fest to give me questions. And they're already in the latest issue, QST, the April issue. And I can't read my own writing, but I finally figured out what most of them are. Okay, good to see you live again, David. Reggie Love from the Faroes, from Oscar Yankee 1 Romeo. Well, Reggie, hello. Mr. G, Yaesu FTAS-10 is considered the top from Sherwood. Sherwood is a guy who, is he the one, is Sherwood the lab, or is Sherwood the YouTuber who has his own lab? FTDX-10 is very, very, very nice radio. It's their most up-to-date circuitry. My FTDX 3000 has basically the same receiver circuitry as the FTDX 5000 and even 9000 for the receivers. It's good stuff. It's not a true digital radio. I mean, the back end is fully digital, but you've got some super heterodyne through the mixer. And when you get it down to IF, that's where the digital takes over. Now, the ICOM radio is fully SDR. They run everything through an RF amplifier. They've got a series of basically roofing filters that select the band. Okay. And then after that, they do the conversion at RF and then do it's a decimation or something to get the frequency down. It's very interesting. Instead of having to have a mixer, you just throw off the last 6 digits or something. Okay. Close that. Somebody just contributed 25. Thank you. Ralph Leland. Hi, Dave and everyone. K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia. 3 Henry 21. Leo, I thought Innovato had shut down due to Michael battling cancer. He sent an email out months to that effect. Could be. I mean, the problem with all these ham radio companies is that all the hams in them are older, just like us. Now, I've done a lot of business with HRO, but when you do business with DX Engineering, everybody you talk to there is a major rabid ham. Okay, these are contesters, these are DXers. Their stations are the best, and so on. They know ham radio. Whereas I called up HRO and asked for a barrel connector, connect 2 coax with the barrel connector. They didn't know what it was. I'm going, so anyway, next time I was at a ham fest, I bought several of them so I wouldn't run out again. Ray Chase, which antenna would you recommend? Palomar Engineering 155 feet end-fed, or a homemade half-wave 160 meter loop? Do not have room for a full wave loop. If it's a half wave, you may have trouble getting it to resonate on 160. Now the Palomar Engineering 160 to 6 meters, I like end-fed dipoles. They're very convenient. I've got one up right now. It's the League, the ARRL's kit. Now the problem I have with the ARRL kit is just one thing, and that is you've got to drill some holes. That may be very easy for those of you with drill presses. I have a desktop drill press, and Tegan and I worked, I think it was Tegan, it might have been Aiden, worked very hard to drill the proper holes in the proper place on that thing. And then that stupid box, an antenna that we were putting up fell down on top of that antenna and just bust that box open. So I tried patching it up and all this kind of thing, and it pulled apart again. So it's all patched up again. And it's kind of open to the elements because there are pieces missing. So I went down to Home Depot to try to find that particular electric box. It's a plastic, unfortunately, electric box that they've got everything in. If anyone happens to know the model number for that box, I sure would like to know, because I want to rebuild that so that it's waterproof. By the way, one thing that I did on the part that hangs down, the coax comes up to the bottom, so that part is always down. I drilled two 1/8 inch holes in there to keep the water out. We had a problem when I was in the Air Force. We had a radar there that had a sealed box outdoors, and there was always water in it, no matter how many times they replaced the seal. So finally someone just drilled a little 1/8 inch hole into the bottom. What happens is when it gets cool in the evening, the air inside the box shrinks, putting negative pressure, and it sucks water in, or it sucks humid air in. Then as the box gets warmer, it pushes air out, but the condensate will stay in. And it eventually, after a year, it's full of water again. So that's what I put these holes in there, was to equalize the pressure so that when it got cool, it would not suck in humid air. Not that we have humid air here. Okay, the answer to your question is get the one you want. If you really can't tell the difference, flip a coin. And I've done that. And my personal preference is for end-fed half waves, but do what you want. Now, one thing you can do, if your yard isn't wide enough, you've got the balun over here, you've got a wire coming over here, and then take the rest of that wire off at 90 degrees. The thing will still work. You may have to change the length of it a titch, but it will work. Remember, there's only one way of tuning an end-fed half wave, and that is the length at the far end. And you want to tune it for the bottom of the 80 meter band, okay? Because then you'll get the 40, the 20, and so on. If you try and tune it up into the 80 meter band, all the other bands will go out of there where they should be. Okay. Fred Pulson working on RFI with ferrites. HT Haas dead silent receive. Oh, HT has dead silent receive, mostly by computers, Wi-Fi, and thermostat. Your HT is FM and is squelched when it's not receiving a signal. So you will not experience any RFI when the thing is squelched. However, if it opens up for a signal and when you transmit, you get RFI into other things, there are two things to look at. One, get a good solid cable from the connector in the top of the HT going outside to the ground, lightning arrestor, up onto the roof to a J-pole or some equivalent, okay? You'll have far better reception, and you get the RF out of the shack. That's the key thing, okay? Chris Goodman, K0BLU, welcome back, Chris. Hello from St. Cloud, Minnesota, where it's 40 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. Starting to plan my trip to Dayton this year. I am too. But my wife won't be able to go because of her back issues. And I don't want to go by myself because that's a long ways to drive an RV by myself. And by now, all the hotels in the area are already booked. So, if I were not dumb, I would fly. But I got to tell you something. Just me. If I never climb onto a commercial airliner again, it will be too soon. I absolutely detest the commercial airline experience. Has nothing to do with flying. Has nothing to do with safety. Has everything to do with airports, middle seats, lack of leg room, all that kind of thing. I mean, it's just misery. I used to fly all the time. I flew once a week for quite a while from Burbank to San Jose and then back in one day. Picked up a lot of frequent flyer miles that way. That was old Pacific Southwest Airlines. And good company. Good companies don't get less. They get bought out by big companies. So Michael Lowe, I use a Yaesu 991A, have had it, and I think we might have to look for, a few years ago, great radio, looking later for the 710. Yeah, the 991A is a very nice radio. I was torn between that and the Yaesu, but I finally went with the ICOM. Chris Wilson, Ray Chase, I'd go homemade because that's what we do as hams. Half-wave loop, can't comment on the performance. If you've only got room for a half-wave loop, I'd not make it a loop. You can make it a dipole just by bringing the ends back and separating them by about that much, or that much, or whatever works. Okay. Chris Wilson, Ray, Chase, I'd just get as much of that wire up in the air and feed it somewhere that works for you with the appropriate matching transformer to get as close to 50 ohms as you can. Chirp! Thank you. Thank you, Al. Chirp. Chirp.danplanet.com. It's free. They are constantly updating it with the new radios. I don't know. Let's go look. We'll go to chirp.danplanet.com. Okay. Let's go to, here are the supported radio models. And radiodity. GS5B is a very nice radiodity radio. It's just like the UV5R, except it's got a proper front end so it doesn't spray junk all over everywhere. I am not seeing any DMR stuff in there. Now there's some BTEC stuff in here. GMRS is getting a little more popular. GMRS is the ground mobile radio system. The way you get a license is you pay your $35. It used to be $50, $35, and you get your license. And it works. It's like CB except for the professionals. Now, you don't have the right to repair your own radio, as though that stops anybody. There are repeaters on GMRS. There's only 40 channels. I think 40. A number of the radios that I've gotten from the Chinese manufacturers are GMRS radios. I went ahead and signed up for a GMRS license just to see how hard it was, and it was like falling off a log. It was really super easy. So yes, I have a GMRS call sign. Never used it, but I have one. Now, it's used a lot by hunters because it reaches a lot further than the family radio service. It is used by people out in, you know. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, the thing is falling quite a ways behind where I am here. Okay, but Chirp is it. Thank you. Hi, Dave. Love you, man. Thank you for all the years of content from Randy Leahy. Thank you. Ray Chase says, thanks, Chris, for the tip. Josh Hayes, can you have a 300-foot run of RG8X coax on HF without a lot of significant loss? On 80 and 40 meters, yeah. But I would go with RG213 or LMR 400. There's also a Mesopalini cable that's equivalent. That comes out of Italy. Now going to have a tariff. I don't know, maybe as they start peeling it off the roll, the tariffs will suddenly end, so the back half of it will be tariff-free. But we'll see. In ham radio, nearly everything we have, except MFJ, comes from outside the country. And the Japanese defeated the American manufacturers back in the late 70s simply by coming out with better radios, better ergonomics, better organization, better performance, better reliability. And the American companies, by that point, there never was a lot of money in ham radio. What they had to do and did not do was to engineer a radio just as good as the Yaesu FT101. It was about the same size, offered all the same features and so on. They didn't do it. They stuck with their separates, you know, the transmitter, the receiver. They could transceive together if you hooked them together with the right cable. I learned on a set of Drake twins. But they didn't. It's the same way they captured much of the auto market was by providing a better product for a lower price. Why did they do this? How did they do this? Because of a guy by the name of Richard Deming. Deming was an industrial engineer, one of the kinds of guys that designs factory floors and automation and all that sort of thing. And he had something to do with quality. There was a seminal book, if you can get a copy of it, it's still absolutely applicable, called Quality is Free. And it has one of the first defensible definitions of quality. You know, not this, oh, this feels quality, but meets requirements. And it talked about a system engineering leap where you went and designed the requirements for it. If you want to make a very inexpensive vehicle, make a very inexpensive vehicle. But make note of what it is you're doing that makes it inexpensive so that the part that you're making will continue to meet requirements throughout the lifetime of the vehicle. Nobody in Detroit had any interest in listening to him. So we went on a speaking tour of Japan and took the country by force. We now know that method as the Toyota method. Okay, just-in-time inventory and, just all kinds of things that they did first. And at least the government stepped in to save GM and Ford. Chrysler got sold off to a European firm. My Jeep, it's a Chrysler product. It's Stellantis or something like that today. I think the name Chrysler has disappeared. But Ford and GM make fine cars, and they get a little help from the tariffs. I will tell you one successful tariff story. This is the successful tariff story. Harley Davidson was about to go broke. They did not do anything with research and development. They sold their very out-of-date models with just the, ride a motorcycle kind of thing. They sought and got a 4-year tariff, an unreasonable tariff, on anything over 600cc engine size. Okay? So the Japanese immediately retooled and started making, instead of 750s, they made 600cc's. There were actually 598cc's. I had one, 2 of them actually. I crashed one and then replaced it with the same model. They completely opened up the field of sport bikes, crotch rockets, whatever you want to call them. They completely opened up that field by staying under the 600. Meanwhile, Harley Davidson completely revamped everything about their business. For example, all Harley dealerships needed to be next to a freeway so they could be seen from the freeway. And all kinds of stuff that they did. They invented a bunch of other apparel. You go into a Harley Davidson dealerships, it's mostly a clothing market. They had a few motorcycles here and there, but it's style. They did not revamp their engine. They did go to a rubber drive belt to keep the noise down so they could use more of their noise budget for the sound of the exhaust, because that's what they were selling. And so after 4 years, the government lifted the tariffs, and Harley-Davidson had bootstrapped itself up to where it is now. It's a perfectly viable motorcycle brand. So that was one successful, very targeted tariff to save one particular American company, and it did. It did. And then Japan could go back to producing its Gold Wings and stuff like that, which were quite large. I rode that 600cc bike for like 14 years. Bought it new, drove it until it dropped, basically. Okay, let's see. Dave, whether it be 10 or 11 meters, your information and experience is priceless. Thank you. In the rest of the world, not so much in the U.S., but in the rest of the world, CB is considered a perfectly acceptable way to get into radio. It gets people interested in the art of radio and operating radios. And a lot of those people become hams. Okay? So, anyway. AC1TS. For first or second HF base station radio, what are your thoughts about buying new versus buying used 5 to 10-year-old radio? Here's my thought on that. I do not recommend used equipment for your first radio, your first real radio, because you don't want to buy somebody else's problems. I talked about this in a recent video, which hasn't been aired yet, of my old 10-Tech Jupiter right up there. It looks great. It works. It does everything eventually. But the cat jumped up onto my desk and barfed into the screen. And it got down in behind it there. I ended up having to send it back to 10-Tech to be cleaned so that the buttons would work again. And to this day, they do not work well. You can get them to work eventually. You have to push it 6 or 7 times. It's a great radio, but if I were to sell it used, I would tell people about the cat story. Now, what I suggest, if there's somebody in the club who wants to sell you a used radio, ask to borrow it for 3 months. Get yourself on the air, get some experience with it, and then make a final decision whether you are willing to pay for the rest of the radio. You'll have to put a deposit down, but whether you want to pay for the radio or not. We have, over the last 10 years, gone through a sea change in HF radio design. They're all software-defined radios. The old super heterodyne that's been with us for a century is no longer the standard way to make a radio. You do it all digitally. And when you do it digitally, you use different algorithms than were used in those old analog radios. We're really running out of time, aren't we? So I would recommend new, unless you have very, very good reason to believe that you're not buying somebody else's problems with that 5-year-old radio. Fred says thanks. He's N8 FAQ. Leo Gustafson been struggling with Michael's Innovato ham clock and getting it to recognize my Android phone's Wi-Fi hotspot on and off situation. Sounds like frustration. One time I thought I was stopping some streaming. I was doing some test streaming. I thought I'd stopped it. What I'd actually done is started it. And I was having a lot of frustration over here and was using language that's appropriate for frustration if nobody is listening. Unfortunately, I had a whole bunch of people listening. So, again, sorry about that. And no reason you should have to listen to that. 3Henry21 added $25 to the chat revenue. Thank you. Feeding the channel, thanks for what you do for us. You are certainly welcome. Chris Wilson, not a problem, from VK down under. Leo Gustafsson, he is still retailing all the quadras and accessories. I've been in touch with him lately. Okay, that's good. Fred also added $10 to the chat revenue. Fred, thank you very much. Thank you. And Leo says, I'm hip about HRO. Dave was misled by the old Tigard, Oregon office a few years ago when I was starting out. Yeah. Some of those old, I mean, HRO's been around forever. Some of those salesmen in there are like car salesmen. They try to upsell you. They try to get you to buy stuff you don't need, you know. And I remember when I was a kid, there were electric clocks, dial clocks in cars, and they were notorious for failing very quickly. And I remember getting into a debate with the dealer. I said, I don't want the clock. He says, well, it comes with the clock, and that's this price. I says, then take it out. I don't want the clock. And so, if there's a clock in it, I ain't paying for a clock. Okay? So anyway, Leo, that's encouraging to hear. Hard to beat an Innovato Quadra for a hem clock. There's also Geochron that you can look at. Motor scooter, is it worth the extra cost to switch from solder PL259 connectors to the crimp-on kind? Oh, that's a hard one. The problem with the solder-on PL259s is getting the solder through those stupid little holes and having enough braid up there to solder to something. And it was almost impossible to, I've never had good luck doing that. Now, a lot of the crimp-on ones, you crimp that braid and then you solder the center conductor. There are ones out there that are really expensive that are both crimp. Now, if you, I've done this. In fact, I put it in one of my Ask Dave videos. I have a piece of cable here that I use for my dummy load. And you'll note that this is the PL259, and as I circle it, it got crimped. The reason was because the rubber slipped out of the crimp-on connector, and then the shield was not making proper contact. So I just took a pair of household pliers, squeezed it, and it works fine. Now, I wouldn't want to put this cable outside because it's most decidedly not waterproof. If you can successfully solder the connector, you probably have something pretty good. One way that you can get solder down into that hole is to use a toothpick and put a little solder flux. Not acid core, but rosin core flux. Not rosin core, rosin flux. I purchased from Radio Shack some years ago this. This is a little can of rosin soldering flux. Stinks to high heaven. And that's how much is left in there after years of having it. I will still be working off of this when I die. So it's a lifetime supply of flux. You can get flux down at Home Depot. Make sure you get the electronic flux, which is the rosin flux, not the soldering flux for soldering pipes. Okay, people don't do pipes anymore either. Okay, we are about out of time. Question for you from Chris Wilson. Grounding an isolated element for static electricity buildup discharge. Would you prefer to use an inductor or a large value resistor between the element and ground? If you use the inductor, the RF is going to hit it and it will become part of the resonance of the antenna. So a fairly large value resistor, but it's 50 ohm antenna. You're not going to have to go much higher than 10K, something like that. If this is an isolated element, you can do that, yeah. Okay, Viva Elecraft, yes. A US-based ham transceiver company, but guess where their parts come from? You can't buy an American-made resistor. You can buy some integrated circuits in America, but the really high-tech ones are made in Taiwan at TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. That is, they make the best, they make the biggest, and that's their insurance policy against mainland China taking them over, because they are irreplaceable. And if China attacks, down go those plants. They'll be leveled to the ground. And then China won't have anything, because they need those semiconductors too. There are a few hotels still available around Dayton. I'll have to look into that. Thank you. I'd really rather go there in the RV. Let's see. Life and death, Dave. You spread solder paste on the coax braid before inserting it in. It is very easy to melt the solder. Very good. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll give that a try. Maybe do a video on it. Thank you all very much. We did an hour and a half. I'd intended on somewhat less because my assistant was struggling with that antenna outside. It's dark out there now, and I don't think he has X-ray vision. He does a lot of things, but I don't think X-ray vision is part of them. So, thank you, and I will say to you 73, and I'll try and be back. Okay, it depends on a lot of things. So, this is the time for it. I may move them to Saturday. I don't know. I'm open to suggestion. So 73 to all of you. So you have to click this button first. And then say 73. I have to point here so that I can see over here. When I do that, come on, Dave, get to it, get to it. Thanks especially to the people who added to the chat revenue. I really appreciate that. Thank you. It helps so much. Good grief, how far is that thing behind? Unfortunately, it just keeps going and going and going. Drink some water. Yeah, say 73 and get off the air, Dave. Wow, that thing's minutes behind. I have a nice bare forehead, don't I? Not something good to look at. I'm looking at something on the screen. Boy, this live stream's